500,000 vehicles in a single year, built by women. The words appeared in the Allied report typed in stark black ink across the page, and yet they seemed almost impossible. Axis intelligence officers leaned over the document, shaking their heads, reading and rereading the numbers. Surely this is an exaggeration, one murmured. Yet photographs, telegrams, and factory reports confirmed it. Rows upon rows of jeeps, each assembled by hand, each tested and polished, each destined for the front lines. The scale defied expectation. Inside the Toledo factories, steam and smoke curled from machines mingling with the scent of oil and metal. Women in overalls moved with purpose, hands precise, faces focused. Wrenches, hammers, welding torches, every tool in motion. The rhythm of labor was relentless. Each completed vehicle a triumph of coordination and human will. Diaries later recounted that even in the deafening roar of machinery, moments of camaraderie, whispered encouragement, and silent determination created a pulse that carried the factory forward. Outside the factory walls, rumors spread. Axis commanders could scarcely believe their intelligence. Civilian women producing vehicles at a speed once thought impossible. Intercepted communications described factories humming like living organisms, women moving in perfect synchrony, machines obeying their hands. The language of disbelief mixed with awe. Fact and folklore intertwined. The reality was remarkable, the legend even more so. Accounts from the factory floor added another layer. One worker reportedly lifted a heavy engine block alone, her co-workers cheering her on. Another group completed an entire jeep in record time during a single shift. These moments became folklore, celebrated in whispers, letters, and wartime newspapers. Fact layer documented production schedules, output, and quotas, while folklore layer immortalized courage, ingenuity, and determination. By evening, the hum of machinery continued unabated. The factory floor was alive with motion, the clang of metal and the hiss of welding filling the air. Every hand, every tool, every vehicle contributed to a war effort that the Axis powers could only watch in disbelief. And yet within the factory, there was no thought of shock, no recognition of the legend being created. Only focus, precision, and relentless purpose. The impact was felt far beyond Toledo. Each jeep rolled off the line to supply the front lines, each one altering the balance of mobility, logistics, and strategy. Propaganda and morale reports would later describe these women as Rosie's heroes of industry, turning steel and rubber into instruments of Allied victory. The Axis powers were stunned, not by armies in the field, but by hands and hearts in factories thousands of miles from the front. As the last light faded, the factory continued its rhythm. And in that steady cadence of work, wrenches, clinking engines, tested women moving with unwavering purpose. The story of determination, innovation, and unheralded heroism took shape. Fact documented the numbers, folklore captured the spirit, and together they etched a narrative that would endure beyond the war. The city of Toledo, Ohio, awoke before dawn. The streets quiet except for the rumble of delivery trucks carrying steel engines and raw materials to the sprawling Chrysler factory. The smell of oil, metal, and heated machinery seeped into the air. This was no ordinary morning. Thousands of women newly recruited from offices, farms, and homes filed into the factory, ready to participate in a war effort that defied expectations. Each one carried not only a wrench or hammer, but the weight of responsibility, the awareness that their work would ripple across oceans and battlefields. Inside the cavernous factory floor, sunlight filtered through high windows, catching on metal frames and half-assembled jeeps. Engineers and foremen moved among the women, checking blueprints, signaling assembly orders, adjusting machinery. The lines of production stretched farther than the eye could see, a choreography of human and mechanical precision. The women worked in unison, hands, steady minds, focused bodies moving rhythmically with the machinery. Fact layer later recorded the number of vehicles produced per hour per shift per line. And yet those numbers alone could never convey the sheer determination and coordination of the workforce. The social dynamic on the floor was remarkable. Women who had never touched a wrench before now performed complex mechanical tasks with practiced skill. They learned quickly, taught each other, and formed small teams that anticipated one another's movements. Folklore from the time spoke of women who seemed to move as one, completing an entire jeep with efficiency and speed that astonished supervisors. There were stories of friendly competitions between shifts, each team trying to surpass the previous in output and in doing so raising morale and productivity. The mixture of camaraderie, ingenuity, and the pressure of wartime urgency created a unique rhythm, a heartbeat within the factory. The machinery itself was formidable. Presses, welding torches, assembly rigs, and conveyor systems formed a network of coordinated motion. Engineers had spent months calibrating each station to maximize efficiency. Every bolt, every panel, every engine had to be precise. Yet, the human element remained central. When a machine jammed or a part did not fit, it was the quick-thinking dexterity and cooperation of the women that kept production moving. Diaries recount that sparks from welding torches illuminated determined faces, casting shadows that danced across steel frames, a visual testament to both labor and artistry. Outside, the city felt the influence of the war effort. Buses and trains transported women from nearby towns. Advertisements encouraged volunteers to join the industrial workforce, and families adjusted to the absence of daughters, sisters, and wives now working in factories. Newspapers reported on the unprecedented scale of production, highlighting achievements with pride and awe. Yet Axis spies intercepted fragments of information. Their reports filled with incredulity. How could civilians, especially women, produce vehicles faster than the enemy could imagine? The whispers of disbelief spread from intelligence posts to high command, creating a backdrop of astonishment against which the human story unfolded. The pace inside the factory was relentless. Shifts were long tasks, repetitive but precise, and the soundscape was a symphony of labor hammers, striking metal machines, whirring tools clanging, and voices calling instructions. Yet amidst the noise, small moments of human connection persisted. One worker helped another adjust a harness. Another offered a sip of water across a sea of steel frames. Fact layer documented the production output and timelines, but the folklore layer captured these gestures, the human warmth, ingenuity, and determination that made the statistics possible. Logistics extended beyond the factory floor. Parts arrived from suppliers across the Midwest, each component tracked, inspected, and delivered to the exact station where it would be used. Trucks and forklifts moved constantly, navigating aisles crowded with machinery and people. Engineers coordinated with foremen to adjust sequences, ensuring that production never stalled. Yet stories circulated of improvised solutions, workers devising makeshift tools or assembling components in novel ways to maintain the pace. These anecdotes became legendary in wartime newspapers and post-war accounts. By mid-morning, the scale of the operation was awe-inspiring. Hundreds of jeeps were moving along the assembly line, each one a tangible symbol of American industrial might. The women worked with synchronized precision, yet each brought her own skill, intuition, and courage. The Axis powers could scarcely comprehend the speed, the accuracy, the audacity. Fact reports confirmed production quotas met or exceeded daily targets. Folklore spread of women who seemed to defy exhaustion, producing as if propelled by a force beyond mere human energy. The factory was not just a site of production, it was a stage for a social and cultural transformation. Women who had never imagined themselves in industrial roles now operated. Machinery managed logistics and ensured that each jeep rolled off the line ready for battle. The human narrative merged with the mechanical, the factual with the legendary. Every welded frame, every engine bolted into place, every jeep tested and moved along the floor carried a story of resilience, determination, and impact on a global scale. As the day drew to a close, Sunlight fading through the windows, the factory continued to hum. The women paused briefly, catching breaths, wiping sweat from brows, sharing a word of encouragement before resuming. Each shift, each completed jeep, each act of coordination contributed to an effort that astonished allies and enemies alike. Fact Layer recorded production totals, logistical efficiency, and output quality. Folklore Layer preserved the rhythm, the awe, and the human drama that would echo through decades. By evening, the city of Toledo exhaled with the women, the machines, and the unrelenting pulse of production. The Axis powers were left stunned by the audacity scale and efficiency of civilian labor transformed into industrial might. And within the factory, the human story of courage, ingenuity, and unyielding determination continued shaping history one jeep at a time. The scale of production was staggering. Fact records later confirmed that within a single year, the Toledo factories had churned out 500,000 jeeps, each inspected, tested, and dispatched to Allied forces across multiple theaters of war. Raw steel, rubber, and machinery moved along the assembly lines with meticulous precision. Each component accounted for each bolt, measured, each engine calibrated. Yet beyond the numbers, the human orchestration was equally extraordinary. Women trained in weeks to perform tasks that once required years of experience, mastering welding, riveting assembly, and quality checks in perfect synchrony. The factory operated like a well-oiled machine. Conveyor belts carried chassis from one station to the next. Welding torches hissed and spat. Sparks, presses stamped metal panels into place, and inspectors moved methodically along the line, eyes sharp for the slightest imperfection. Fact Layer shows that the average Jeep took mere hours to complete from start to finish, a testament to engineering planning and human endurance. Folklore Layer preserves the stories of workers who seemed to anticipate each other's movements, passing parts and tools almost telepathically, completing vehicles with a rhythm that seemed guided by instinct. Supplies were coordinated with military precision. Parts arrived by rail and truck, sorted, inventoried, and delivered to exact stations. Any delay could halt the line, disrupt the schedule, and impact the war effort. Yet the women adapted quickly, improvising, reorganizing, and maintaining the pace. Diaries recount instances where entire teams recalibrated machinery on the fly, solved problems before supervisors even noticed, and maintained productivity under intense pressure. The combination of human ingenuity and mechanical reliability created a system greater than the sum of its parts. Daily output statistics were extraordinary. Fact Layer documents show that thousands of Jeeps rolled off the lines each week, each passing rigorous inspection. The vehicles were distributed across Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific, providing mobility, supply, transport, and tactical advantage. Axis intelligence intercepted fragments of these reports and were baffled. How could civilians, primarily women, produce vehicles faster than enemy planners had anticipated? Disbelief mingled with fear, and the legend of Toledo's factories began to grow beyond the raw numbers. The workflow inside the factories was a marvel. Women specialized in different tasks. Some welded frames, others assembled engines, others installed electrical components. Engineers monitored progress, constantly adjusting timings and sequences. Small teams formed to handle particular stages of production, and every movement was synchronized with the next. The human element ensured flexibility, adaptability, and problem-solving, while the mechanical systems guaranteed speed and consistency. The combination produced a scale of output previously unimaginable. Safety and precision were paramount. Fact Layer confirms strict adherence to protocols, protective gear inspection schedules, and tool maintenance. Yet Folklore Layer adds color stories of women working for hours in near darkness, guided only by the glow of welding torches, completing complex assemblies with astonishing accuracy. Some recalled sparks reflecting in determined eyes, the heat of metal, and fire mingling with adrenaline, creating a theater of human skill and effort. Even in the midst of monotony, small innovations emerged. Workers devised faster ways to attach panels, to lift heavy components, and to test engines. These ad hoc improvements increased productivity and became shared techniques across shifts. The collective intelligence of the workforce augmented the efficiency of the system. Diaries note the pride that came with each completed vehicle, the sense that every hand, every motion, every decision contributed to the war effort on a monumental scale. The logistics extended beyond production. Trucks, rail cars, and shipping yards ensured the Jeeps reached training grounds, ports, and ultimately combat zones. Supply chains, tracking systems, and inventory control kept the flow uninterrupted. Fact layer meticulously documented each step, while folklore layer preserved the perception of near-miraculous delivery vehicles arriving on schedule despite obstacles, workers moving like coordinated tides through factory and yard. The human and mechanical systems intertwined seamlessly. By mid-year, the factories had exceeded expectations. Thousands of Jeeps were in transit, armored divisions and infantry units were receiving the vehicles, and Allied commanders marveled at the speed and reliability. Axis reports described an industrial force unlike any seen before, highlighting the bewilderment caused by women's work on the front lines of production. Fact documented speed scale and quality. Folklore preserved the human drama, the ingenuity, and the near-mythical perception of women transforming steel into instruments of victory. And yet, despite the scale, the production remained intimate. Each worker understood her role, her responsibility, her impact. Letters, diaries, and interviews later emphasized the pride and focus that filled the factory floor. Every completed Jeep symbolized not just steel and rubber, but resilience, determination, and collective effort. Fact layer accounted for assembly rates, output totals, and defects. Folklore layer captured the heartbeat of the factory, the human pulse driving the machinery, the determination manifesting in every finished vehicle, the awe of both allies and adversaries. By the end of each shift, the factories hummed with accomplishment. Jeeps moved forward on testing tracks, welds inspected engines, revving under careful observation. The Axis powers remained astonished. How could such efficiency and scale exist so far from the battlefield, powered primarily by women who had once been civilians, now transformed into the backbone of industrial war? Fact layer confirmed the numbers, the logistics, the production. Folklore layer preserved the wonder, the legend, and the inspiration. Together they painted a portrait of an industrial miracle that would resonate for generations. Amid the mechanical hum of assembly lines, the human stories of Toledo's factories began to take shape. Each woman brought her own history, her own determination, and her own courage to the production floor. Some had never touched a wrench before the war. Others had worked in offices, schools, or farms. Now, they moved in coordinated rhythm, welding, riveting, tightening, inspecting. The sound of machines, hammers, and welding sparks formed a symphony that underscored the heartbeat of industrial America. Letters and diaries from the workers reveal moments of quiet heroism. One young woman wrote of lifting a heavy chassis component, with two others whispering encouragement to one another as sweat and soot streaked their faces. Another recalled the exhilaration of completing a Jeep in record time. During a single shift, the clatter of applause and cheers echoing across the factory. Fact layer documented the output, the shift hours, the tools used, but folklore layer preserved the rhythm, the camaraderie, the almost choreographed flow of human effort that transformed steel and rubber into war machines. Stories circulated that blurred reality and legend. Supervisors recalled women working through smoke and sparks, moving as if guided by instinct. Some claimed that the factory seemed to have a pulse of its own, a rhythm that the workers synchronized with, completing tasks with uncanny speed. Whispers of ghost hands guiding components or tools seeming to appear just where needed became folklore, embellishing the narrative of Toledo's contribution to the war. The blend of fact and legend created a mythology of industrial heroism. Friendships and teamwork flourished in the relentless pace. Women formed informal support networks, covering for each other when fatigue set in. sharing techniques for efficiency, encouraging one another during long shifts. Diaries recount playful competitions, teams challenging each other to complete jeeps faster, yet always adhering to safety and precision. The humor, the shared determination, and the silent nods of recognition between workers sustained morale even in the face of exhaustion. The personal sacrifices were tangible. Shifts stretched long hours in standing positions, faces smeared with grease, hands raw from tools. Many wrote letters home describing the physical strain and emotional toll. Yet they also expressed pride, a sense of purpose, and the knowledge that each completed jeep was a contribution to victory. Fact Layer captured the production numbers, defect rates, and efficiency metrics, but Folklore Layer captured the heartbeat of these moments, the triumph of human will over fatigue, the laughter amidst the clang of metal, the small, almost imperceptible gestures of solidarity. Supervisors and engineers added another dimension to the human story. They guided, trained, and encouraged, but they also marveled at the speed and adaptability of the workforce. Reports from managers recount moments of awe, teams improvising solutions to mechanical problems, creating jigs and tools to speed production, all while maintaining quality. These anecdotes entered oral history, forming part of the legend of women transforming the industrial landscape of the war. Even small gestures carried meaning. A worker offering a drink to a colleague, sharing a joke, in a brief pause between tasks, helping a new recruit learn a difficult procedure. These acts humanize the immense scale of production. Folklore Layer immortalized these stories, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes factual, yet always conveying the spirit of collaboration, ingenuity, and resilience. Each jeep became not only a vehicle, but a symbol of these collective human efforts. Beyond the factory, the impact of these women resonated. Newspapers, magazines, and propaganda broadcasts celebrated Rosie the Riveter as an icon, a representation of courage, ingenuity, and patriotic duty. Stories of young women producing hundreds of vehicles in a single shift inspired communities, motivated recruits, and inadvertently struck awe and disbelief into Axis intelligence reports. Intercepted communications described the phenomenon as unbelievable, astonishing, and beyond comprehension, words that blurred reality into legend. By mid-shift, the factory floor was alive with narrative. Each woman moving, welding, assembling, testing, communicating. The rhythm of production was both mechanical and human. Sparks from welding torches illuminated focused expressions. The hiss of machines punctuated murmured instructions. Diaries describe the eerie beauty of the synchronized movement, a choreography that combined sweat skill and willpower. Fact documented the metrics of production. Folklore preserved the perception of near-miraculous coordination. As the day drew to a close, exhaustion and triumph intertwined. The hum of machinery slowed, yet the momentum of achievement lingered. Thousands of jeeps had moved down the line, completed and ready for deployment. The Axis powers remained shocked, monitoring reports of output that defied expectation. And within Toledo, women removed their gloves, wiped sweat from their brows, and shared brief words of camaraderie, knowing that each vehicle they had touched would carry soldiers to victory, and that their own legacy was being written in steel grease and determination. The narrative of Toledo's factories was not only a story of production, it was a story of humanity. Courage, ingenuity, solidarity, and determination interwoven with the mechanical. Fact Layer recorded timelines, quotas, and output. But Folklore Layer captured the rhythm, the awe and the human heartbeat that drove each jeep forward. The factories became a theater, each worker a performer, each vehicle a testament to human will. And the legend of Toledo's women, the hidden backbone of industrial power, would resonate for decades to come. The factories themselves were marvels of industrial orchestration. Every station, every machine, every worker was a cog in a vast, precise system. Raw steel and components arrived on the dot. Conveyors guided chassis from welding stations to engine installations. Inspectors moved methodically along the line. Each movement accounted for each action calculated. Yet the human element remained essential. When a machine jammed, a tool malfunctioned, or a part did not align, it was the ingenuity, quick thinking, and coordination of the women that kept production moving. Engineers and foremen monitored the assembly lines with meticulous attention. Charts and schedules covered the walls, detailing output per shift, per line, per worker. Any deviation could ripple through the entire system. Yet the women adapted seamlessly, improvising, assisting each other, anticipating needs before they were articulated. Diaries recount how new recruits learned quickly, shadowing experienced colleagues, absorbing techniques and shortcuts that increased both speed and quality. Fact layer documented each vehicle's journey, while folklore layer preserved the rhythm, the almost choreographed precision, the human pulse that powered the system. Logistics extended far beyond the factory floor. Railcars delivered tires, engines, and metal panels. Trucks transported components between buildings. Storage yards were organized to allow quick access. Inventory clerks recorded every part, every tool, every vehicle, ensuring nothing delayed production. Yet folklore layer tells of moments when ingenuity overcame disruption. A worker using a makeshift tool to replace a broken part, a group coordinating to move a chassis manually when the conveyor stalled. These stories became part of the mythology of Toledo's factories, highlighting human creativity and resilience. The choreography of labor was astounding. Women specialized in different tasks: welding, riveting, painting, electrical installation. Each team worked in concert with others, passing partially assembled vehicles along like dancers in a synchronized routine. The pace was relentless, yet mistakes were minimal. Fact layer confirmed defect rates remained exceptionally low for such volume, while folklore layer captured awe, the sense that the line itself had a life, that workers moved as one organism, a living machine guided by determination. Training and adaptation were central to the system. New recruits were quickly taught technical skills, safety procedures, and coordination techniques. Mentors guided them. Peer instruction supplemented formal training. Folklore recounts stories of women teaching each other silently, signaling through gestures and eye contact, completing complex assemblies without a word. The system was flexible, yet disciplined human ingenuity integrated into mechanical precision. Even the tiniest innovations had impact. Workers discovered ways to streamline assembly, secure components faster, or improve quality checks. Engineers took note, incorporating these improvements into the workflow. Diaries noted pride in these contributions, the realization that individual initiative amplified the collective output. Each vehicle completed was a testament not only to industrial planning, but to human creativity, adaptability, and resolve. Supply and distribution networks intertwined with the assembly system. Completed Jeeps were tested, labeled, and dispatched via rail or truck to ports and staging areas. Logistics officers coordinated shipments, monitored schedules, and ensured that production lines continued without interruption. Fact layer documented delivery times, routes, and allocations, while folklore layer preserved stories of miraculous timing, vehicles arriving just in time to meet operational needs as if guided by fate. Safety protocols and quality assurance were embedded within the system. Inspectors verified welds, tested engines, and examined every component. Accidents were rare given the scale. Yet workers developed informal systems to alert each other, prevent errors, and maintain continuity. Folklore layer remembers the small acts of heroism, the quick thinking that prevented a fire, the shared knowledge that a faulty part could be replaced in seconds. These actions ensured that the system did not merely function, it thrived. By the afternoon, the efficiency and precision of Toledo's factories became apparent. Production exceeded quotas, defects were minimal, and output surged forward to meet wartime demands. Axis intelligence intercepted reports and photographs, reinforcing disbelief. How could civilian women maintain such speed, precision, and quality across hundreds of thousands of vehicles? Fact and folklore intertwined again. The data was real, yet the perception of near-miraculous coordination became legend. The pulse of the factory continued even as the sun set. Workers moved in unbroken rhythm machines, hummed sparks flew inspectors, recorded, and the conveyor belts carried another wave of jeeps toward completion. The human and mechanical systems operated in harmony, demonstrating the remarkable integration of skilled labor planning and ingenuity. Each vehicle a tangible outcome of a living, breathing, synchronized system, both human and industrial, that astonished the Allies and confounded the Axis powers alike. By evening, the factories stood as monuments to organization and human will. The coordination of women, machines, materials, and logistics had achieved a scale and precision unparalleled in wartime industry. Fact layer documented the numbers, timelines, and output, while folklore layer captured awe, the sense of almost supernatural rhythm, and the enduring human spirit that powered every completed Jeep. Together they created a story of industrial genius and human determination that would resonate through history. By mid-year, the scale of Toledo's achievement became undeniable. The factory floor hummed with ceaseless motion, the clatter of tools, the hiss of welding torches, and the roar of conveyor belts forming a rhythm that drove production onward. Rows upon rows of Jeeps moved steadily toward completion, each a tangible product of human skill and determination. Axis intelligence intercepted reports and photographs, their disbelief palpable. 500,000 vehicles produced largely by women in less than a year. It was beyond expectation. The human element reached its zenith. Women coordinated seamlessly, lifting, welding, tightening, inspecting. The pace quickened as quotas approached supervisors, pushing shifts to maximize output. Diaries recount exhaustion interspersed with exhilaration. The clatter of metal punctuated by laughter, cheers, and the occasional shout of encouragement. Folklore layer captured these moments, the perception that hands moved faster than eyes could follow, that sparks from welding torches danced like guiding stars along assembly lines. Every station on the floor became a stage for human ingenuity. Improvisation met precision at every turn. When a conveyor belt jammed, a welder altered workflow. When a part was missing, a team devised a rapid solution. When fatigue set in, camaraderie carried them forward. Fact layer documented the output, the defect rate, and the speed of completion. Folklore layer preserved the awe, the sense that the women themselves were orchestrating a machine larger than any single part, a living, breathing testament to human determination. As the final waves of production approached, the factory seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Supervisors checked timelines, engineers adjusted machinery, and workers exchanged silent nods of focus and resolve. Every completed Jeep was a victory, a step closer to the historic goal. Whispers circulated among the staff. Could they truly finish 500,000 vehicles in a single year? And yet the rhythm of the factory never faltered, hands and minds moving in harmony with the mechanical pulse of assembly. Outside the factory, the impact was felt across the Allies. Military dispatches praised the reliability and speed of production, acknowledging the unprecedented scale. Axis reports conveyed shock, incredulity, and a dawning realization the industrial might of the United States had been amplified by human courage and ingenuity. Folklore layer immortalized this shock, the notion that women civilians in civilian clothes had become an unyielding backbone of war production. Individual heroism and improvisation punctuated the climax. A young welder reportedly completed an entire Jeep engine in record time, prompting cheers and astonishment. A team of riveters devised a faster sequence for assembling chassis, saving precious minutes and increasing output. Diaries and oral histories preserved these stories, blending them with the larger fact layer of production metrics, forging a narrative where human spirit and industrial scale merged into something legendary. By late afternoon, the factory had reached the historic milestone. 500,000 Jeeps completed, inspected, and ready for deployment. The women on the floor paused briefly, exchanging glances of quiet pride. Each vehicle represented steel-rubber sweat and skill, but also resolve, resilience, and a statement to the world. Axis powers were stunned not by tanks or guns in the field, but by the relentless precision and coordination of civilian hands thousands of miles from the battlefield. The air was thick with both exhaustion and triumph. Sparks still flew, engines hummed, and conveyor belts continued their ceaseless journey. Fact layer confirmed the numbers, schedules, and quality, while folklore layer captured the perception of a near-miraculous orchestration. Every observer, every report, every photograph contributed to the growing legend of Toledo. It was a climax not of combat, but of human ingenuity, industrial power, and coordinated effort. By evening, the factory floor was a monument to achievement. The rhythm slowed, yet the heartbeat of determination lingered. Supervisors and engineers reflected on the scale, the speed, and the audacity of what had been accomplished. The women themselves, exhausted but triumphant, had transformed the impossible into reality. Fact and folklore intertwined, numbers confirmed the feat, stories immortalized the spirit. Together, they cemented a moment that would be remembered as one of the greatest demonstrations of industrial and human power in history. As the factory floor quieted at the end of a long day, the magnitude of accomplishment began to sink in. 500,000 Jeeps completed, inspected, and ready for deployment. The sheer scale of production had not only astonished allies, but stunned Axis intelligence. Reports described industrial output that rivaled entire armies. Yet it was powered largely by women who had been civilians mere months before. The impact was both immediate and far-reaching. The vehicles themselves became symbols of mobility, supply, and tactical advantage. Each Jeep that rolled out of the Toledo factory carried soldiers' equipment and the promise of American industrial might. Fact layer documented the destinations, numbers shipped, and timelines maintained. Folklore layer preserved the awe and disbelief, the legend of women producing war machines faster than the enemy could anticipate, the narrative that these civilians had become a backbone of the war effort. Within the factory, the women felt the quiet pride of contribution. Diaries and letters recall the mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, the recognition that their hands had forged tools that would carry troops into battle, that every bolt, every panel, every engine represented a tangible impact on the war. Some wrote of moments of reflection, pausing to watch a completed Jeep move down the testing lane, imagining it on distant battlefields. The human layer of emotion intertwined with industrial precision. Beyond the factory walls, the story spread. Newspapers, radio broadcasts, and propaganda celebrated the unprecedented achievement. Women were hailed as Rosie's icons of resilience, ingenuity, and patriotic duty. Axis reports continued to express disbelief. How could civilians produce such volume with precision and speed? The psychological impact on both sides of the war was significant, reinforcing morale and fueling awe of American industrial capacity. Supply chains continued to hum. Rail cars, trucks, and shipping yards coordinated deliveries across the nation and overseas. Engineers and foremen ensured that output remained uninterrupted, adapting to shortages and challenges with human ingenuity. Folklore. Layer preserves tales of near-miraculous efficiency, vehicles arriving just in time for critical operations. Teams improvising to meet urgent demands, machinery and human hands moving in perfect coordination. The system had become a living, breathing entity, driven by both planning and human will. Casualties of fatigue and intensity were real. Long hours, repetitive tasks, and physical strain took their toll. Yet workers supported one another, forming informal networks of care and encouragement. Diaries recount moments of laughter, amidst the clang of tools, whispered jokes, and quiet gestures of solidarity. Fact layer documented work hours, breaks, and efficiency, while folklore layer preserved the human heartbeat, the moments that statistics alone could never capture. The legacy of Toledo extended far beyond production numbers. Each Jeep represented not only mechanical capability, but also the courage, innovation, and resilience of the women who built it. Axis powers remained incredulous. How could such industrial might exist so far from the battlefield, shaped by civilians thrust into roles they had never imagined? Fact and folklore merged, the data verified the output, the stories conveyed the human spirit that made it possible. By the evening, as the last Jeeps moved along testing tracks and workers prepared to leave, a quiet reflection settled over the factory. Achievement mingled with exhaustion, pride with humility. The factories had transformed the landscape of war production, altering strategic calculations, inspiring allies, and shaping public perception. The human effort, the machinery, and the coordinated system had created a moment that would echo through history. And so Toledo's factories became more than places of work. They were monuments to human determination, innovation, and collective resolve. Fact layer captured the efficiency, logistics, and scale. Folklore layer preserved the wonder, inspiration, and stories that would be passed down through generations. Together they formed a narrative of industrial heroism, a testament to what humans could achieve when purpose, skill, and perseverance converged. The Axis powers may have been shocked by numbers and speed, but the world remembered the courage, ingenuity, and tenacity of the women who transformed steel, rubber, and time into instruments of victory. The echoes of their work and the story of 500,000 Jeeps would endure long after the machines had rolled away. The factory floor fell silent as the last Jeep rolled forward. The clang of metal, the hiss of welding torches, and the hum of machinery faded into memory. 500,000 vehicles completed, each a testament to human will, skill, and determination. The Axis powers had been stunned not by armies in the field, but by civilian hands shaping the course of war. Within the walls of Toledo, the women paused, breathing in exhaustion and triumph. Every wrench tightened, every bolt secured, every spark of welding carried purpose, courage, and legacy. Fact documented the numbers. Folklore preserved the rhythm, the awe, the heartbeat of human ingenuity. Together they created a story that would echo through history. And as night settled over the city, the legend endured. The Jeeps would carry soldiers across battlefields, yet the memory of the hands that built them, the hands that defied expectation, fatigue, and doubt, would remain immortal. The world had witnessed an industrial miracle powered by determination, precision, and human spirit. The story of Toledo's women is more than history. It is a reminder that courage, ingenuity, and perseverance can reshape destiny. And the echoes of their work continue to inspire every Jeep, a symbol, every hand, a testament, every heartbeat, part of a legacy that will never fade.